I'm Jim Tech. You're watching Now Media with me, Ian Burns, our managing editor. Beautiful kind of overcast day here in the Okanagan and in Ottawa.
Beautiful. Absolutely stunning fall day.
Well, we got a really big show, as the title says. Carney travels in the wake of Trump's Art of the Deal. Bank of Canada cuts. Canadian economy is structurally damaged. Oh, awkward dinner with Carney and Trump. Trump signing deals, Carney signing guest books. Trump gets crowned, Carney to face ethics probe. Well, what a lot of differences there. There is no auto sector future in Canada if the Liberals stay the course. Carney to make industrial carbon tax cornerstone of climate competitiveness. Alberta will have a referendum. Town hall in Richmond packs the house. And UK makes claim similar to Carney's. All that and a lot more. I mean, we got a lot here going, including a little clip from Vladimir Putin as well. Lots in the news this morning to get through. And we do this every morning at 9 a.m. every weekday morning. Ian Burns and I are here. Unfiltered Canadian news and international stuff that definitely not the CBC. Definitely not the CBC. I don't know what they're talking. Maybe we'll take a look at what they're trying to tell you today. But we're going to kick it off, though, with the Bank of Canada cutting as expected. I think everybody expected them to cut, and they did. Now the Bank of Canada rate at 2.25, that affects variable rate mortgages. It's the second cut in the row, which brought it down from 2.75 to 2.5. But again, they took the elevator up. When it was at 0.25 there during COVID, and they said they wouldn't raise rates. They raised them in unprecedented fashion, 19-fold. And some of those jumps up were a full point. And they've been taking the slow staircase down. And that has actually hurt many people that have got mortgages are renewing here. And a lot of people are getting mortgage shock as their renewals are quite a bit higher. But the Canadian economy, according to our Bank of Canada head, Tiff Macklin, structurally damaged. So Bank of Canada says labor market remains soft, job losses building up in trade-sensitive sectors, weak across the economy, less rapid population growth means fewer new jobs are needed to keep the employment rate steady, excess capacity in the economy expected to persist, and inflationary pressures will ease in the coming months. With CPI remaining around the 2%. It did add that Canadian economy faces a difficult transition. Structural damage caused by the trade conflict reduces the capacity of the economy and adds costs. And that limits the role that monetary policy can play to boost demand while maintaining low inflation. I mean, the Bank of Canada really only has interest rates to work with at buying of bonds, which, under the Trudeau era, they were buying like crazy and driving inflation up, even though they said they weren't causing that. And they also said the carbon tax didn't add to inflation, but then they changed their mind on that as well.
I mean, I find that so interesting how he says there's only so much we can do. The role of monetary policy is limited. Is it really? This sort of strange economic regime that we are imprisoned by, modern monetary theory, the limits of its power are kind of unknown at this point still. And for him to say that, it just seems a bit of a cop-out. It's like, he can do it a lot. He can do a great deal. So I find it a little bit questionable that he chucks that in. But another bit that he said, I'm surprised that you didn't highlight, was he said the US has seen strong economic activity supported by a boom in AI investment.
I was going to talk about that later. We're going to come to that later.
He even said that they are kind of suffering though as well with slower jobs growth, and saying that tariffs are bringing up prices in the US.
Jobs and that kind of stuff are lagging indicators. Leading indicators are definitely in the favor of the United States. Many leading indicators there, and that's investment. And then if you look at the leading indicators in Canada, the investment is fleeing. And we've talked about that many times. There is, and people are really starting to notice the amount of capital fleeing. And that is a leading indicator and that will reflect in job stuff later on. So, you know, got leading and lagging indicators. That's what a lot of people don't really understand, is that right now Canada's leading indicators are lagging the United States, and the United States' leading indicators are, you know, all green and going for the gusto, and we're going to see that in some of these stories that we're going to do later here. You're going to see some of these leading and lagging indicators play out. And then Trump at the Asian thing there had dinner, and Mark Carney sat right across from him there. And we're going to play this little clip here.
And part of that is the national security, you know, given to us by the tariffs, properly used tariffs, very properly used. And other countries, as you know, have used them against us, but we never chose to use them very much. And we should have. We should have. And it's made a big difference. Our country is thriving. I think we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. And a year ago we were. And part of that is the
Did we get cut short there? Or? Oh, that's okay. That's good. I think he was talking directly to Mark Carney, though, or even though he wasn't talking to Mark Carney. But that comment was...
I mean, it's not untrue that other countries definitely did use tariffs against the US, and it was quite unreasonable, and it still happens. And a lot of countries have taken America as just like, almost like it's not a country. It's almost like it's a kind of international exchange where you can just like go and make loads of money.
A pool that you can just kind of rob every now and then. You can just go in there and take what you need. And it's been
But to be fair, the Americans, as a consequence, the Americans have also enjoyed many, many benefits, of course, and cheaper consumer goods and things like that. And it's obviously it wasn't, as Trump describes it, as this kind of stupidity and just endless foolishness on the part of his predecessors. It's not quite accurate. I mean, there were pros involved in that as well. But the thing is, if globalization is going to be dismantled, and if we might be headed for another world war, or like a really serious sort of Cold War, which you could argue we're already kind of in with China anyway, if that's going to happen, then America can't afford to source critical, you know, goods from across the Pacific Ocean or further. You know, it just can't do that anymore. And in that light, a lot of what he's doing actually makes sense. But being Donald Trump, he doesn't quite explain it in that way.
Let's play this other clip here at the APEC Summit, APEC Gala Dinner.
I wish each and every one of you prosperity and also world peace. Let me raise a toast. For world peace and collaboration between states.
There you go. There was that toast there. And you're going to see some media outlets in Canada actually running that picture. They kind of froze the frame when it looks like Trump is toasting Mark Carney. And they're just like, see, they're getting along. Just like he was just toasting everybody at the table, right? But it's just amazing how, you know, you try to like spin a story there, right? And then Mark Carney also said that, yeah, I've spoke to all the presidents there. But also South Korea, they did a deal here. Let's play this clip here. Signing deals, and this one here is with Trump.
He's finalized details of a trade agreement with South Korea following his meeting with the president there. And now our president says that he's confident he can strike a deal with Chinese leader Xi in their high-stakes meeting that will happen later tonight. Lucas Tomlinson on the road today in South Korea. Lucas, hello there.
Well, good morning, Bill. President Trump has arrived here in South Korea with all the pomp this country can muster, including fighter escorts, the red carpet. And just moments ago, President Trump announcing that the U.S. and South Korea have inked a $350 billion trade agreement. Of course, the United States is South Korea's second largest trading partner. And part of the pomp are some gifts. And check this out, Dana, President Trump receiving, in essence, the crown jewels. This crown and necklace, the highest award South Korea can muster. and President Trump is the first American to receive it. And Trump says the trade deal has been reached, and it'll be a grand total of some $20 trillion investment from around the world in the president's first term. Here's the president earlier.
I figure that will probably be at 20 or 21, maybe even $22 trillion of investments coming into our country by the end of the first year of my second term. And, you know, we had a tremendously successful first term.
That's good. That's good. I mean, you heard Donald Trump speak. You've heard him many times. He'll tell you the same thing over and over again, right? But again, I'm sure the Democrats and even some of the government-funded media here in Canada will lose their minds that actually South Korea's gave them a crown. Remember the No Kings that ran in the United States and in Toronto for some reason. They had a No Kings rally here in Canada in a country that has a king. This makes no sense.
Smart people.
Yeah.
Very smart people. The crown is hilarious as well. It's like half of a body length or something. So I would love to see him wear it just for the laugh.
Just when he goes to the United States there, when he goes into his new ballroom there, that should set
Or when he goes to meet Nancy Pelosi or something like that. That's what I would like to see. But
I did ask a couple of my older friends here, why there was a No Kings rally here in Canada. And they said, because I said there's a king in Canada, why would they have a No Kings rally here? And they said that because you're not allowed to say No Trump rally, because you would go to jail. I'm just like, what?
In Canada, that would happen.
Apparently.
Or anywhere, for that matter. I mean, that's an indication of how powerful still a lot of the
media
disinformation is that comes out of certain media outlets, particularly in the United States, but also here, to be fair.
We've got some good stuff coming later on misinformation, for sure. Trump putting out this piece as well. For those asking, we didn't come to South Korea to see Canada because people are asking, are you going to talk to, they're asking Carney, of course, are you going to talk to Trump? Are you going to talk to Trump? And well, then the Canadian media outlets actually putting this out there saying, see how much he cares? I'm just like, I don't know how that makes that, but okay.
It's kind of, it's a little bit of a strange situation because Canada, or Carney to be more precise, has put so much into this, and he's got so much hope sort of built into this trip in Asia in general, that's going to be how Canada will. I mean, it seemed for a little while it was all about Europe, but I guess he's just given up on Europe. Maybe he's looked at the latest economic data from Europe and he's thought, okay, off we go to Southeast Asia then. But his dream, his sort of the great plan, is that they're going to come and replace what's lost from the United States. But it's very awkward because Donald Trump is literally there at the same time as Carney. They're asking the same people. Yeah. They're asking the same people for deals. And then, one is for the US, one's for Canada. And a lot of the chat is about LNG. And I just think, yeah, Canada's blessed with a decent bit of LNG, but we haven't got as much as the Americans have, at least not on what's actually discovered and operated and known about. The Americans have quite a lot more than Canada. So they beat us on that. They also have the world's largest military, and that happens to be a part of the world that's freaking out massively about Chinese expansion. And they sort of rely on the balancing force of the United States Navy. We don't really have a navy. Canada doesn't really have a navy to speak of. So it's not like we can contribute in that area. So it just seems like it's almost like we're trying to win the favor of the belle of the ball. And this is our rival, Prince Charming here. And it's kind of, how do you beat him? How do we beat him? I mean, you hear these things about, we have climate competitive policies. Right, okay. So the Koreans are going to say, United States Navy, bugger off. Have you seen Canada's emissions lately? Like, that's who we're going to do business with.
We're going to talk about that lots.
It's a laughable idea, isn't it?
So there's an old saying, you can't beat them, join them. But obviously we haven't done that yet. And you're right. Carney is traveling the world talking about his climate policies. And we're going to talk about it later. We'll leave it till later. But Carney did say he had a good conversation with the leaders, including Trump in South Korea, but that's kind of like misleading a bit. He said he talked to all the presidents. They were having dinner. It was a social, more like it. And they were, talking around the table. But Trump did say, like that, what it says there, he didn't come to see Canada, so they weren't negotiating there for sure. And then the deal they signed in South Korea was for LNG. And again, if you remember back a couple of years, who asked Canada for LNG? South Korea.
Yeah.
That's
Among
our deal
many
again.
others.
That's our deal. So the Americans signed the deal with the Germans for LNG. Our deal, we refused them. Our deal, right? They just signed the deal with Japan LNG. Our deal, the Japanese begged us for a couple of years ago. These are all our deals. And now the South Koreans who begged us for LNG, Trump just signed a deal for them for LNG. Every one of those deals is ours. Every one of those is economic prosperity for Canada. Every one of those taken by the Americans. Every one of those kiboshed by the Trudeau Liberals, who the economic advisor at the time was none other than Mark Carney. And we're going to talk about his policies that are still in place today. They will not say the words oil. Everybody's signing deals there. And Mark Carney is signing guest books. Let's play this clip here from the guy traveling with them, Maninder Sidhu. And this is the clips they're putting out. Trump's putting out clips, or the media is putting out clips of him signing deals and getting a crown. This is what we got here. Let's play this little clip. Yeah, you can leave the music off. But yeah, we got a lot of handshakes. Lots of handshakes.
Nice little bit of dress up there.
Yeah, lots of handshakes. Yeah, lots of, looks like an influencer would do this post, right? Like,
Yeah, like I went to Korea for 2 days and this is what I saw.
yeah, it looks like an influencer post. Where's the deals? Where's the actual deals? Where are the deals? And here you go. Here's another one from Mark Carney himself. This is off his Twitter account or X account or whatever. And then talking about his warm welcome in Singapore. And let's play this here. We don't play the music. Just they take the music off because, these are like, there you go. Signing a guest book. Well, Donald Trump signs deals. We're signing guest books. And we're getting a nice dinner. Again, an influencer post. Look at all this influencer stuff. Is Mark Carney an influencer? Photo ops between Chrystia Freeland, Melanie Jolie, Francois Philippe Champagne. They even showed you the guest book twice. Oh, this is just a repeat. But anyway.
That's because it makes it look like he's signing something of consequence, doesn't it? That's what it's about. That is awfully deceptive, isn't it, from the PMO, whoever it is that made that video.
I would say to the Liberal Party of Canada, go buy the book, Art of the Deal, and don't travel in the wake of Donald Trump, because what Ian said, they have the military, and everybody wants that American military protection. There is no doubt about it. And our military, underfunded, under-equipped, undermanned, underpaid, and now living in the military housing is, like much of it, not even fit for habitation, deteriorating walls, unsafe drinking water, and toilets that don't flush. We have neglected our military. We've asked MP Stephen Fuhr to come in and talk to us. He's our local MP. I don't know.
But the thing is, I mean, America, to look at America's military and look at Canada's military and then say, look, here are two militaries. I feel like if you start off a conversation like that, you've already lost your mind. The word military is not adequate to describe both of those organizations. America has like an imperial global machine. It's without doubt the most powerful military in the history of the world. Canada's military is, Canada's military is not even as strong as like the Danes, force. Probably. The Danish, certainly Israel, a tiny country like Israel, would slap Canada in a military confrontation, which is quite a sort of, it's like 4 times smaller than Canada. It has no business having a better military, but it does. But I would just say, to even compare them in terms of potential, there's nothing there. Like Canada could never compete with the American military, and it could never compete with the Americans in somewhere like East Asia, in the Western Pacific. Canada could never go in there and say, look, don't worry, Japan. Don't worry, the Philippines and all the rest of you lads. We'll look after you when China comes knocking. Like, Canada's never going to be in a position to do that. That really is, forgive the pun, America's trump card. There's nothing that we can ever do to rival them there.
Well, I mean, we show it over and over again. And then you look at, like we continue to think that we're on equal footing. We compare things like our dollar to their dollar. Or we compare, you know what I mean? And when Chrystia Freeland, remember she said, well, Canada needs to get nuclear weapons because we need to defend ourselves. Like, we are so far away from, even if we started today to defend ourselves, it would probably take 20 or 30 years. We don't even have in the cards. We can't even decide if we're going to get those F-35s. We can't even. We're buying diesel subs, which is like, you know, like a cheap version of, like, at least the Australians are getting a nuclear sub. Like, we're not even in the right century.
But this is the context, and it's important to bear this in mind. I know a lot of Canadians and a lot of Americans probably and other people find this a very painful conversation. But this is the context in which Trump and his servants started to talk about Canada joining the United States. It's very much in this context of what the rest of the 21st century is going to look like, and the realities with things like in the military domain, the realities of Canada and Canada's potential. And it's kind of, I think a lot of people find it very demoralizing to think that that there is even sort of like a grain of reality to that claim from Trump, that there's kind of an inevitability that Canada will join the US. But this is kind of the context, is when you talk about things like this. The US military, there's nothing like it, and there never will be anything like it, I don't think, other than from the Americans. The Chinese, I don't think that they can truly rival the US military. So it's a fact of life.
Canada, I mean, I've talked to many economists, heading into an economic winter, and the United States heading into the golden age. And we just need to figure out a way to work with them and stop sticking sticks in their eyes, and just, you know, like, get rid of this arrogance that we have, and recognize, like, what the rest of the world recognizes, what the rest of the world literally recognizes. Look at the reception from the South Koreans. Look at the reception from everywhere he's gone in the past little while. Qatar, I don't know, name the places. Look at the reception. And it is because of the stick that they carry. It is because of the stick. It is because of that military machine. We can't hope to have the same thing. Like, even when Mark Carney landed, right there in the background of Mark Carney's plane there was the Air Force, the president's plane. It's right there.
Can't escape it.
And then, you know, like, it's just, and then his is flown in with military escort. I don't know. But Carney plans to meet with President Xi, as does President Trump. So they're both looking to make deals, although President Xi did sign a deal with the ASEAN community as well. We're going to talk about that in a bit later. So they did sign a deal. So Xi is signing deals as well. The Chinese economy hurting a little bit. And so it's probably looking to sign as many deals as can. I mean, they'll sell anything. Ian said that yesterday. Like, we continue to do this climate grift here where we, you know, like, don't want to sell oil. We don't want to do this. And the Chinese will literally sell you whatever you will buy.
Yeah, and they'll do whatever it takes to do it, to produce the thing that they're going to sell. For example, rare earth minerals. That what China did, and that's just one facet of the Chinese industrialization of the 20th century. But what they did to win that monopoly to their own countryside, their own land, is appalling. But they did it because they decided that it was in the interests of the Chinese people. And as we sit here in 2025, it looks like they were onto something, weren't they? Now that they've potentially got the whole planet by the throat, and everyone is panicking and wondering what to do about how to get a hold of these metals.
And then also Carney facing a little bit of heat at home here, because they did vote. And they voted 170 MPs to 164. Imagine that, 164. Who has 164 votes in the House? Oh, right, the Liberals voted not to have an ethics probe because they're not about accountability and transparency, but they got outvoted. So there is going to be an ethics probe into Mark Carney's dealings here. That was 170 to 164. I guess he didn't do that deal. The standards need to be very high for people who want to serve in Canada's highest office. What I found really troubling was there was media outside waiting for the people coming out of Parliament. And the question they said to the MPs that voted for the ethics probe, the reporters asked, what do you hope to get out of this? Like, why are we doing this? Like, what? Are you running cover for Mark Carney now? Is that the job of the media? Is this the
Yeah, there's
time?
another way to phrase that. Like, go up to the Liberals and say, "Why did you vote against transparency?"
Yeah, but they're like they weren't asking the Liberals that. They were just asking the people that voted for the ethics probe. It's kind of wild, no? The answer they got. I mean, the standards are very high for people to serve in Canada's highest office. I mean, he's been very evasive on his answering for all these things. Asking about some of these holdings he has. I mean, again, they say Team Canada, and Team Canada is not Team Canada. You got Team Ford, you got Team EB, you got Team Mark, and then Team Liberal, but no Team Canada that I've seen. And most of Mark Carney's investments are in the United States, and he took Brookfield there. And Brookfield, people should be angry with this. Brookfield signed a major deal with the United States yesterday. Canada can't seem to sign a deal, but Brookfield seemed to sign a deal with the United States. I think it was an $80 billion deal that Brookfield got to sign.
Quite interesting that he's invested in Tesla. I hadn't picked up on that before. When he released his, that was in July, when he released some of his investments, and he has Tesla. It's kind of.
I mean, when he first started running,
fascinating.
He tried to say he was an average guy with minimal holdings, and I said back then, if that's the case, he's got to be one of the worst CEOs in history, because running one of the bigger companies, and it is one of the bigger companies in Canada, Brookfield. If that's what he got out of it, is basically nothing. I'd be just flabbergasted. Turns out I was right. He has a lot more money than he let on.
Of course, and this is a guy that he was working for Goldman Sachs. What was it in the 80s or something, or ages ago? Like he'll have made bank, as they say. Obviously, especially as somebody that is surrounded by finance people and understands finance and the market. Like, you would expect him to have a massive pile of cash, wouldn't you?
And then Sam Cooper has all that information. There were journalists here in British Columbia, all that information on some of the connect the dots there with Chinese bank loans to Brookfield. And then the financing by the Canada Infrastructure Bank of the BC Ferries deal, and then he's connected to that. And there's a lot of connections, so a tangled web. So I don't know if people will be able to pull that web apart, and they're going to be defending at every move there. The Liberals will be defending at every chance they get to squash or get in the way of this ethics probe. I have little hope that this ethics probe will highlight anything other than it'll be likely like chasing your tail.
Yeah, more obstacles will be presented, but that in itself tells a story to people that are willing to listen. But that's what it all boils down to. Who's willing to listen, and who's willing to tell that story as well? Obviously, as we know about the Canadian media, the answer is Holly Dawn, basically, isn't it? that's who's going to tell the story.
Let's go look on CBC right now. Let's have a look and see if that ethics story, Mark Carney's ethics to be probed, let's see if that's on the top of the fold there. Let's see. Ford accuses U.S. Ambassador bury the hatchet. Carney mum on what he saw in an anti-tariff. I mean, everybody said that he saw it. Now he's pretending that he didn't see it. So where is the ethics probe? Where?
We've got celebs turn out for Game 4 of World Series.
Yeah. Where's the ethics probe? Because it's huge. It's a huge story. I bet you if you went to
this thing about Grok asking a child to send nudes.
You could probably go to international media and find the ethics probe, but you're not going to find it on CBC. Anyway.
But yeah, sorry, just to go back as well, to the Liberal reaction to this. We've already seen a sort of dry run, haven't we? Or not a dry run, it was a real run, wasn't it? When there was an effort by the Conservatives. The Conservatives basically boycotted the House of Commons, didn't they? Because the documents that they called the Green Slush Fund weren't being released. We saw what the Liberals chose to do. Their sort of PR people, the PR spin was the Conservatives are just being they're being unpatriotic almost. They're shutting down our government while we've got all these crises because they want to play politics. That's what they're going to do. They're going to try and make this. They're going to try and make the Conservatives look bad, as if they're trying to mess around during a serious time.
They're going to say, yeah, they're going to say this is not the time. When is the time for all these liberal policies that have busted Canada?
Just looking at this article, I hadn't even read this line. Maybe I'd absorbed it by osmosis, unbeknownst to me. But here we have a Liberal MP who says, Conservatives are trying to score political points, do a character assassination, or give some sort of impression the Prime Minister is offside somehow. So there you go. This is bad use of parliamentary tools. And the Ethics Committee is being manipulated just so Conservatives can constantly attack the Prime Minister. So they've already started doing exactly what we just said.
Sam Cooper, was testifying in that committee hearing there, and he laid out some stuff that was pretty troubling. Yet, they seem to ignore that as well. But they go to their usual talking points. And this one here is like lots of egg on the face of the Melanie Jolies, the Francois Philippe Champagnes, the Chrystia Freelands, the Mark Carneys. We will do everything we can to save the auto sector. Wow, they continue to keep in place that EV mandate that we did the story yesterday and we talked about it, how the CEO of the Automobile Dealers Association there, Auto Manufacturers Association said, get rid of that EV mandate. No, not getting rid of it. Let's play this clip though. This is the mayor of Brampton.
Choppy waters, and based on what Stellantis is saying is that there's no business case for auto jobs in Canada as long as tariffs are in place. I think that the immediate outlook looks pretty negative, and it's why we're choppy waters. And
I mean, you can put that other clip there. Yeah, there you go. I mean, the EV
That's a hell of an admission, that, isn't it?
The EV mandate, the tariffs, no deal. I mean, they're basically, the Liberals, again, we talked about this yesterday at length, and I talked about with Renee Merrifield at length. They say they're helping the auto sector. They say in one breath, we're going to do everything we can to help the auto sector, but we refuse to remove the EV mandate. The EV mandate is actually killing the automobile manufacturers here in Canada, but they refuse to remove it. Same thing they say about the media. We're here to help the media with Bill C-18, which is crushing media in Canada. But they continue to say that it's helping. Even Guilbeault says it's immoral to question it. Immoral to question it. Even though media outlets are closing, they must be immoral. So the ones closing, and with their final breath, and Kamloops this week put out, with their final breath, they said in their last press release, said, that's the end of us. Thank you, Bill C-18. But hey, they must be immoral. They must be immoral. Take a look, Global. You're actually funding your own demise. But I know that the executive team at Global is doing well. Look at their bonuses. You can go look at their financial statements. They seem to be doing well while they lay off reporter after reporter after reporter. And their stock is 9 cents. They own over $1 billion in debt. And I think their debt is worth about 30 cents on the dollar. They're like the Walking Dead. And all they do is they have a begging bowl there to the Mark Carney Liberals, begging for survival, and then you wonder why they're biased. Wonder why they're biased.
And they wrap it up, don't they, in such kind of sanctimonious terms, such grandiloquence that they come out with about democracy and fighting back against evil American misinformation.
We're gonna have,
as if they're literally like there with a shield and a spear trying to protect Canada. It's just laughable, isn't it? The hypocrisy is relentless, and it's quite painful to observe.
We're going to have right near the end, we're going to show you a clip that is just basically the epitome of the Democrats and the Liberals and their gaslighting and the sanctimonious kind of behavior they have, and their inability to confront the truth. Post office cuts. They're calling them historic. Postal employees yesterday urged MPs to permit public consultations on the major cuts to mail service. Cuts announced by Cabinet were historic and far-reaching. Union executive told the Commons Government Operations Committee. I mean, they let this thing fester into this massive kind of like horrible money-losing thing. What is it, like $10 million a day they lose?
God, yeah. I can't remember the exact figure. Something like that, though. Yeah.
And then so they leave it, and they just leave it fester, and then now it's this huge problem. But Cabinet said on September 25th it would allow the post office to eliminate doorstop mail delivery in favor of community mailboxes and cut delivery for more flexible scheduling. Yeah, they're just in terrible, terrible shape. And the
union, the head of the union comes out and says, this will eliminate thousands of good unionized jobs. People have been trying to warn you that that was on the horizon. when you went on strikes again and again and again and made unrealistic demands.
I mean,
some would argue.
I was a job steward when I worked at the mill, and there's a purpose for unions, but unions can't be for the purpose of just having a job. Then you might as well just get a government check, because you have to at some point say this thing has to make money. You can't live off the taxpayer. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's saying you're entitled to that job and the money, and it's coming out of the taxpayers. Last year, the post office pre-tax loss of $841 million. And it was back in 2017. Look at all this stuff falling apart. Last profitable 2017. What government was there still just ending there? Trudeau's Liberals took it over, and they just started shelling out money and they were giving money all over the world. $109 million, we talked about this a couple of days ago. $109 million to China, the world's second largest economy. We're begging China right now for a deal too. $109 million we gave them so they could work on their climate change. I'm sure President Xi is just like, okay, sure.
But also human rights.
Yeah, human rights.
Mentioned, and that is crucially important, isn't it? Because for so long, countries like Canada have tried to lecture China about their admittedly disgusting record on not just human rights, which is a vague nonsense term, but their sort of disgusting record against humanity would be a sort of clearer way to put it. But now they've realized, I think, how the cookie's crumbling, and they're just saying, okay, we can't lecture China anymore about this sort of thing. Well, for many reasons. One is just pure realpolitik. Like, it doesn't get you anywhere with the Chinese. It's a waste of time. It's like empty words, and it's self-sabotage, our favorite term of late. But another reason is that the former prime minister of this country said that Canada had committed to genocide. Actually, two genocides, if I'm not wrong. One was the Indigenous women and girls thing, which is ongoing, and then the other one was the residential school. I'm pretty sure it's 2 genocides Justin Trudeau decided that Canada was guilty of. How do you say that about yourself and then go to China and say, no, obviously you've completely jettisoned any sort of moral authority that you might have had.
And here's another security bill. It said they're saying it's not censorship. The Department of Industry yesterday tried to assure the Commons public safety community a cybersecurity bill will not be used to censor dissent on the internet. And MPs question a provision for warrantless measures against any threat. Individual speech has no bearing on the ability of Bell Canada or Rogers to maintain their network or reliability of their services, and that's testified by Andre Arbour, Director General of the Telecom Policy. This is just no relation there. And the thing, they talk about this, yet they won't write it in there. I mean, that was asked of Guilbeault a long time ago. Well, just write in those restrictions. But no, they don't want to put that in there, right? Because, again, I've interviewed John Carpay for the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms many times, Lisa Bildy, another constitutional freedom lawyer. And Canada definitely doesn't have what the Americans have, which is basically absolute freedom of speech with the First Amendment. Canada has the Charter of Rights, which is more like guardrails, and we have a Liberal government that continues to press on those guardrails and take away more and more and more. Bill C-18 is another form of censorship. Bill C-18 censors media outlets from getting their information on social media platforms that the Liberals themselves said Facebook, Instagram are too important to ignore, and they spend millions of dollars there while they block news outlets from putting their information on there. It actually helped them during the election. They couldn't put real news on there, but they sure put all their propaganda on there. And it is a form of censorship. Bill C-18 and the Liberals love it. And they continue to feed the trough of the CBC that does their bidding. Again, go to the CBC website this morning. Is there a story there on Mark Carney's ethics probe? Not that we saw. But
somebody said in the comments that they even called CBC to ask, and obviously didn't speak to a human, had to leave a message, which I'm not surprised by. I mean, try send them an email if they ever even come back to you. It's quite a long time.
We leave our comments go. You don't get that on CBC as well. Please spread the word of what we do here, calling them out. Mark Carney, we got to ask the question when he was here in Kelowna. It was actually West Kelowna, but he said it was Kelowna. And we got to ask the question on Bill C-18, and he said, you're not going to like the answer. We're going to give more money to the CBC. And they did.
You suck.
They lived up to the promise they gave them, $150 million. And then I'm sure everybody knows this if you're a regular watcher. They promptly, the executive team gave themselves a raise, like, job well done, we got you elected, and we fed ourselves first. Definitely the executive team knows how to feed itself first. And there you go.
They also, another part of the deal, another part of the arrangement was that the Liberals agreed to kind of elevate the status of the CBC, of its funding, so that it could no longer be debated and discussed and changed in the Commons quite so easily. So they basically, they made it like, I can't remember the exact term, something like statutory or something like that. But they basically elevated it above politics, so the CBC could no longer fall victim to the nastiness of Pierre Poilievre. It's like quite remarkable. This is done in all kinds of areas. Just an attempt to kind of remove something from politics. So another way to rephrase that is remove something from democracy. So it's no longer under democratic oversight.
And then they wanted to, Pascal Saint-Onge, who you interviewed, and Justin Trudeau wanted to double the CBC funding before they left. They actually wanted to double their funding before they left, and wanted to make it so that nobody could ever remove that funding for the CBC, because they know that is their secret weapon. The mouthpiece is their weapon. Again, the boomers watch it, and they just live off it like it's like pablum being delivered to them, and they just eat it up. And Rosemary Barton, the chief information officer here in Canada, there just spreads this misinformation, and the boomers seem to want to eat it. They just, common sense has left the room.
Well, somebody is talking about how Wab Canoe looks it looks great on 80s TV. I would say in similar sort of gone back in time, similar bit of time travel. A lot of these people, these boomers that you talk about, though, I think you are just about a boomer yourself, aren't you? So you're not anti-boomer necessarily. But a lot of these boomers, they are living in the 90s. I'm convinced of it. Having had many conversations with these often like extremely delightful people. But their perception of Canada it belongs in about sort of 1996 or something like that. There's been no evolution. There's been no attempt to accommodate the new reality of life in this country.
So I think it's COP30 that's going to be, I think it's in the next couple of days. That is where Mark Carney will live in his glory. But here's a new editorial from Laurie Goldstein there from the Toronto Sun. Federal climate targets based on deception. Yet another report concludes Canada's $200 billion climate change program will barely achieve half of its promised emissions cuts by 2030. But Mark Carney doubling down, saying that he will make the industrial carbon tax the cornerstone of his so-called climate competitiveness plan. And he says that the world wants this. This is why Canada will be the leader of energy, because the world will buy clean energy before they'll buy it from the Americans. Well, the Americans seem to be signing deals. Signed a deal with Germany, signed a deal with Japan, signed a deal with South Korea, all on LNG. All three of those are our deals. All three of them, Mr. Carney, were signed just recently by the Americans. And not one of them said, can we see your industrial carbon price policies first? Because we want to make sure that you have an industrial carbon price framework in place so that we make sure we're buying clean energy. Even the Germans, they didn't ask, did they? Did they ask for that? Did they ask for that report?
Well, look, climate change, we're told by, basically everybody that's involved in that whole world, we're told that it's a matter of life and death, aren't we? It's a question of survival.
Well,
but when it comes to the Koreans, the Japanese and the Germans and so on, when they're presented with, okay, you can make these futile gestures towards bringing down emissions, or you can have the US military giving you protection from China or Russia or whoever it is. And to the surprise of probably nobody, they've decided to go with the US military, because that is the real threat to their existence, not the possibility that the temperature could increase, the global temperature could increase by 2 degrees in 2100 compared with 1850 or whatever it is. I can't remember exactly how they measure it. Even in the worst case scenario, which wouldn't even be that bad, as the IPCC themselves have said. Well, it would be bad. Sorry, that's quite... I don't mean to be flippant. It would be bad, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. It wouldn't be the end of humanity.
Well, even the top climate clown came out yesterday. We did the story. Bill Gates say, climate change will not end the world. So we just got to be responsible in what we're doing. Imagine that. He got religion.
And yet, look at this. Look at our environment minister here, Julie de Brussen, saying in an interview with the Canadian Press, the industrial carbon price is an important part of how we fight climate change. And then she says, Canadians see that climate change and the extreme weather events are impacting their communities in real time right now. Once again, a senior Canadian political figure linking Canada's emissions to serious weather events. As I've said a million times, I'm not going to make a meal of it. There's barely any relationship whatsoever between those two things, because Canada represents such a tiny proportion of all overall emissions. It's not you driving your gas car, and it's not, Alberta oil sands that are causing climate change. It's as simple as that. Canada's not a big enough player to cause climate change.
Again, just for the people with common sense, the people that still have some common sense, that don't eat the pablum from CBC every day, just for those that still have just an inkling of common sense left. Canada continues down this path of this, Mark Carney said it many times, and this is one of the big things he's going to do is carbon credits here. But climate competitiveness, he said that the world wants this. The Germans didn't ask for it from the Americans. The South Koreans didn't ask for it. Japanese didn't ask for it. So who are these people that are asking for it? And the British didn't ask for it. The UK didn't ask for it. So who are these people asking for this? Then when the Americans seem to be signing deal after deal after deal. And there's an AI race going on right now, bigger than the space race, bigger than the arms race. This AI race is going on. And the biggest thing that the AI race needs is energy. And Alberta has a ton of it. And kudos on Daniel Smith for going and doing their own thing, because if we're going to wait here for Team Carney to do something about it with this climate competitiveness, it'll be interesting to see in the next few days how his speeches go at COP30, because I'm sure he's going to be in his glory there, and it's going to be. But the weight of this climate change agenda has left the room. When Biden and Kamala Harris left, when they were going to green the tanks, they were going to actually have tanks. EV tanks, so that when you're killing people, at least they know they were killed with a green tank, right?
Well, what are the CO2 emissions of that shell that you've just fired?
Yeah, a green tank with a DEI driver in it. That's I can rest easy. I was actually killed by a DEI tank driver in driving in a clean, emission-free tank.
I mean, that would be quite an achievement if it was the DEI driver, because to pull off the controls and to aim and fire all at the same time.
And again, if you have any common sense left in you, go watch some of the clips of Donald Trump arriving on those aircraft carriers, and then go back through history and watch some of the stuff when Joe Biden addressed the military, and just see if the American military wanted to have DEI. I mean, in Canada, we're like I don't know what we've done to our military, even the COVID stuff. At least Donald Trump reinstated all the people fired for COVID vaccines and gave them back pay. In Canada, not so much. And we can't even get...
Well, Canada's kind of a continuation of the old regime, the ancien regime in the US, isn't it? I mean, that's not lost on a lot of Democrats who say that they want to come and move here, though obviously they never do.
And the American military getting record numbers in their recruitment. Canada has a complement of like 75,000. That's what they say is full. We can't even get 55. We even tried to get immigrants to join the military. We even tried, and we couldn't convince them to join the military. like
they'd rather drive trucks, wouldn't they?
I know that,
or work at Tim Hortons. They'd rather work at Tim Hortons than join the military. That tells you everything you need to know.
Where's our friend Lightning Rod today, telling us why this, the Canadian military is stronger than the American military? Just wonder. How?
Yeah, well, he likes to, our dear friend, Mr. Rod, likes to talk about the past, doesn't he? So I imagine he would probably talk about the military in like the 50s or something like that.
Here's a map for people. This is for Ian here. All the world's carbon emissions. There's Canada right there. But if you go back and read the Canadian Press story, they'll tell you that Canada is responsible and that we need to do more. And Mark Carney will tell you that we need to give the ability to private corporations to charge for carbon credits, so that Daniel Smith and David Eby will tell you, no oil to our coastline. I thought it was a Canadian coastline. No oil.
Well, is it even BC's coastline, or is it a First Nation that has like 70 members. Is it their coastline?
We're gonna get.
Even I'm confused on that one.
We're gonna get to that. That's coming up. It's like it seems like we did the show yesterday, and it seems like everything we can do to kind of like look at this again. Look at this chart very closely. Take a look at this chart, see where Canada is, and then look at this next chart. There you go. Where we lead there, it's only us and the foolish France in carbon tax revenue.
And then go back and have a look at France. Does France even show up on that? They don't even, literally, France isn't even on that pie chart thing.
Yeah.
They're not even there. But I love how you've got Iran. Even Iran is considerably higher than Canada when it comes to emissions. It is completely ludicrous. Saudi Arabia, South Korea, all higher than Canada. But yeah, here we are in the carbon tax. I mean, that perhaps tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it?
I did yesterday. Every Tuesday, I do an hour-long show with Renee Merrifield, a former MLA with the BC United Party, well-spoken lady, knows lots of stuff. Great show yesterday. Great show. We talked about, are we self-sabotaging our own economy? And man, it sure looks like it. I mean, we're talking about the politics of 10 years ago. When Trudeau took Canada, Carney was part of that, though. He was the economic advisor. And what's in trouble here? What's in trouble? Carney, if you talk about leading and lagging indicators, Carney was the economic advisor because Trudeau said he doesn't even worry about the economy. It takes care of itself. And Carney was the economic advisor to Trudeau and Freeland. Look at where our economy is. We're at the mercy of the Americans. And we continue to be working on the same thing. We're on climate agenda. And this carbon capture, I guarantee you, is going to start showing up in everything we do. You're going to start hearing about carbon capture. You're going to start hearing about how we need to get rid of the emissions cap and replace it with carbon capture and give the ability for companies like Brookfield to tax our energy. Somebody says you need to turn up our volume levels. There you go. And you go watch that show. It's on our Now Media YouTube channel. And we ask you to subscribe. We ask you to share it and get the word out. We are starting to really see some good numbers, which is great. People are starting to watch more regularly. We're seeing, 10,000 and 20,000 views and stuff like that. Some are getting up to 50,000. So we're starting to get an audience, which is great because they took away our audience with Bill C18 on Facebook and Instagram, where we had an audience of over 200,000. And again, that might be too loud now. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. But also, what they do offer our military is this. Let's listen in on this. This is what they are offering our military.
And today, Senator Pamela Wallin is hosting a backdoor closed meeting with the pro-death cult Dying with Dignity. She's helping them lobby to convince more MPs that they should vote to kill more of the vulnerable, disabled Canadians starting in 2027. See, we're told this is compassion, and we're told it's choice. But when somebody's drowning in trauma and desperation, that's not a choice. That's coercion wearing a polite face. I've spoken with veterans who have reached out for help and asked for therapy, for hope, for treatment, and what they got instead was an offer to end their life. I've spoken to more veterans now, and the whistleblowers just keep coming. This is not one or two. This is well documented, over 20 and growing by the day. I know this because I report on it daily, and people seem to trust me with their stories. Imagine how deep that hopelessness must go. When your own country looks at you and decides that death is the very best it can offer. This isn't hypothetical anymore. This isn't some dystopian book. This is the reality in Canada, and it's happening. And it's not just happening to veterans. People with disabilities like myself and others, with chronic pain, with depression, bad breakups, loss, poverty, they're all being told the same thing.
You remember this, the really troubling one when a veteran asked Justin Trudeau in a town hall when he was really popular if he could have money for a wheelchair, and Justin Trudeau said, sadly, there's no money for you for a wheelchair. But they offered him MAID. And then the same Justin Trudeau that stayed in UK there when I think it was King Charles's coronation and was at the piano bar and was paying, what was like $6,000 a night for his hotel room, but then wouldn't tell Canadians who actually stayed in the room, and we all knew who stayed in the room. And the bills from that was like $250,000 just in food and drink and that. And this is all coming from my memory. And then we did the story just recently, $8.8 million for a Canadian consul in Manhattan. Well, we don't have running toilets and safe drinking water for our military. They have money for that, though. They have $109 million to give to the Chinese for human rights violations and climate change.
And don't even get started on gender, what was it again? Gender appropriate Vietnamese rice or something? I can't remember what it was now.
The amount of money, and they still don't have the documents for the $250 million why Parliament was prorogued in the first place, because they wouldn't release the documents. There were allegations made that Stephen Guilbeault's companies took some of the green scheme money. Nothing. $65 million for a Arrive scam. Where is all this stuff? Where is all this? Like, no money for the military. Where is it, Stephen Fuhr? Why are we offering MAID to our veterans? Why are we offering them MAID instead of a wheelchair? This is an embarrassment. You should be embarrassed. It almost brings me to tears. It's so disheartening that we ask young men to go and fight and die and kill strangers, and we can't even give them a wheelchair at the same time. Justin Trudeau goes and spends $6,000 a night for a hotel room. And then there's a Canadian consul there living in an $8.8 million Manhattan penthouse. Sell the bloody thing. Sell the bloody thing and give that money back to the taxpayers. It's absolutely embarrassing. Like, the Liberals are just elitists. The party is for the benefit of the few at the expense of the many. We can go through their policies over and over again. Anyway.
I would really recommend, I don't usually recommend that people watch CPAC, but I would recommend people watch this. The chap, like, I actually don't know who he is, but he was in a wheelchair, and he kind of like introduced the team of people who are opposed to, or this group of people who are opposed to MAID. Extremely eloquent, like unusually fluent and eloquent, really worth hearing from him. And he talks about this disaster where death is being offered as healthcare, and it's being offered in the context of healthcare, even though it's nothing like that at all. It's something entirely different, needs to be separated. But a very interesting discussion. But I would just say, I did a story on this. It's nearly a year ago now, actually. God, December 2024, nearly a year ago. Anyway, and that was based on the latest figures for MAID. And it was that nearly 60,000 people have died using MAID since 2016.
This is how bad.
Something I find quite interesting as well, 96% of those people were white. So no conversations about diversity. Apparently, diversity is very important, apparently, except when it comes to killing your own citizens, which I just thought was surreal. But this whole thing that she's there for, and the chap in the wheelchair, that's to do with not next year, but the year after, 2027, March 2027. It's going to be possible to be killed, medical homicide or whatever they call it, when your only issue is mental health. For example, depression, which is the thing that scares people the most. And that's like, hold on tight, like get your seatbelts adjusted and fastened nicely, because that is mad, and it looks like it's going to happen. It really looks like it's going to happen, despite all of the because it was postponed, if you remember. Mark Holland, the guy that told people not to go on vacations in
because
Winnebagos because it killed the planet. Yeah, that guy. He was in charge of that, and he postponed it. But he postponed it, and he said at his press conference how crucial this was, and how it was like it was a really unpleasant thing to say, that mental health doesn't deserve attention, the attention of death, apparently. But this has not been spoken about with all the Trump and the economy and all that malarkey. Carney hasn't even really been asked about this. But as things stand, in just a little over a year, March 2027, it's going to be possible in this country to go to your doctor and facilitate your own death, your own execution, based only on mental health problems.
And again, for those that have a little bit of common sense left and are still eating the pablum from CBC, go and watch Rosie O'Donnell. Rosie O'Donnell, who's like got TDS like crazy, and left the United States because she can't stand Trump. listen to her rant on Justin Trudeau and MAID and everything, and just says like what Justin Trudeau did to Canada and what the Liberals continue to do to Canada. That's from Rosie O'Donnell. You know you've lost the plot if you've lost Rosie O'Donnell on the left. Looks like Alberta hasn't lost the plot, though. Alberta Forever gets the petition to the 450 signature, surpassing the requirement for a possible referendum. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, if that is, if that's really going to happen, which Danielle Smith seems to think that it's going to happen, doesn't she? If that is going to happen, this referendum, it's going to be just, having lived through the Brexit referendum in England, it's going to be carnage. I can tell you, it's going to be a real mess.
Let's play this clip here from Danielle Smith, actually. We're going to go a second here to get it.
Vote is a yes-no question. It is a separatist referendum. He may be trying to characterize it differently. But if you ask people if you want to remain in Alberta, yes or no, there are implications if people answer no. Mr. Lukasik's vote.
There you go. So they have enough to put it on the referendum ballot there. So Mark Carney's running out of time for Team Canada. Right now you got Team Chaos. I would think that would be the thing. You got EB fighting with British Columbia, saying there's no access to the coastline. What is Alberta supposed to do? And then you've got Scott Moe fighting with Doug Ford, and then Quebec, obviously, in its own island, doesn't give a crap about any parts of Canada other than Quebec. I mean, at least they let you know what they think. And Blanchette said Alberta should do what's in the best interest of Alberta, likely because he wants Alberta to separate so he can just go its own way too. Because, I think Blanchette is being held in there by many Quebecers that still like to milk Canada for all they can, but still get all the benefits that they can. I mean, Quebec has its own pension plan. Quebec has many things of its own, right? Quebec is basically a sovereign state within Canada. I mean, it's got the most power.
Well,
I mean,
a nation,
voting power
that's what
too.
they call themselves.
Yeah. And then so Danielle Smith's referendum, and then this has got to, I mean, if Alberta votes on this, I mean, it'll be messy. But if Alberta somehow figures out a way to leave, that's the end of Canada. I mean,
pretty much. I mean, where does that leave BC, just for starters? I mean, it's Canada, in many ways, Canada really, truly became like a proper country with the Pacific Railroad and the accession of BC joining Confederation. It's like, it would be like dismantling the whole project. You can't really have BC in Canada without Alberta. That's just for starters.
Alberta is the Rodney Dangerfield of Canada. We get no respect. And I would say that is like, you can't argue that Alberta is the Rodney Dangerfield of Canada.
Well, to the point that they're willing to do this. They're not doing this for a laugh, are they? They're doing this because they're absolutely sick. And it's been decades that they've been complaining, and they haven't been satisfied. They haven't been, they feel like there's been no compromise.
Yeah. There you go. We're going to go on to our BC news, and this one here is really troubling here in British Columbia. Let's kick it off here.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
This is a tweet here from John Rustad, and this is that Richmond had its town hall last night, and we're going to play this little clip here from one of the landowners here, the Richmond property owner that had his title as part of the Richmond Cowichan decision. Let's play this.
And now, talk to your local MLA is what we're getting.
Everything demands you carry earlier than the 2025.
Yep.
What attribute is not telling you to? We're not having a story for you like you asked. We have a story for you.
He doesn't have any answers. He knew what's going on. He sat there and enjoyed his $400,000 a year he makes.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. I'm bitter, yes. My tax dollars are at work right now. And who knows? I thought at least we're going to get a gift card out of this deal. Got nothing here tonight.
Are you going to continue to fight?
Oh, definitely. I'll be filing suit.
That's good.
I'll find out what my...
So they weren't even part of the decision. The court said that they couldn't even be. They didn't even get to know. They just got to wake up one day and find out that their title had been awarded, and they couldn't.
I don't know how John Rustad. I don't know how John Rustad talks about this subject without, spontaneously combusting on the spot, because he was mocked and attacked relentlessly by David Eby and many other people, many other eggheads and boffins and experts. Just they couldn't stop sticking the knife into John Rustad when he was talking about this exact thing happening. Remember in the debate, that video's doing the rounds, isn't it, where Eby's saying, like, he's trying to scare you. He's trying to say he's going to take the land away from you. It's like, what's happened? If I was John Rustad, I would just be pulling my hair out constantly, because it's so annoying to be proved right when it's as depressing as this, when it's as big a deal as this. So kind of, I guess, like, credit to old Rusty there for keeping his head on.
I've interviewed Jeff Moyse, the Aboriginal lawyer for the government, for about 31 years, and now practicing on his own. And I've interviewed him a couple times, and we're going to get an interview again. And in British Columbia, there's over 100% of land claims because there's lots of overlapping claims. So this is really serious. And then Jeff Moyse said that this thing could take 5 to 7 years just to play out in the BC Supreme Court appeal system. And the Canadian Supreme Court won't hear it till it's exhausted through the BC Supreme Court. And so these people right now that have had this decision made on their land, you can't sell this. And then there's even talk that you can't even get to renew the mortgage. So the only choice they really have is to sue the government, because the land is purchased from the government. So it's BC Crown that sold the land to this man at some point, or I don't know if he bought it from somebody else, but original sale comes from the Crown. So the only recourse he has right now is sue the government. And you just think about it, I think there's about almost close to $3 trillion worth of private land in BC. Where does the BC government get $3 trillion? And if the BC government can't sell land, like the Crown can't sell land, is there a BC government? Is there a Canadian government? Do you know what I mean? This is how serious this question is. And it's we had Jonathan Kay on the other day, a good interview, go watch that. And he's from Ontario, he used to be an editor with the National Post, and said that, as bad as things are in Canada, they look over at BC and they say, what are you guys doing there? You got a Conservative party that's in chaos, and then you got NDP living in La La Land that basically, allowed all this to happen, basically laid it all out, allowed it to happen, and now it's like, oh, well, we didn't do this. And we got, some reaction here from, a couple of tweets here. Mortimer here, they miscalculated this. Obviously, this is Eby didn't show up at this meeting. But Nikki Shawarma did show up to the meeting there. We got a couple clips, but we're going to run out of time. There was a lawyer here. Let's play this clip here, this one here, if we can. Let's play that clip here from another lawyer talking about how, because right now the court says there 2 titles exist on this property. And he's saying that doesn't. There's no way that works.
The bottom line, after you've heard the definition of Aboriginal title, and from what you've heard of fee simple ownership, is Aboriginal title cannot coexist with fee simple ownership. There cannot be 2 competing rights of exclusive ownership and possession of the same land.
There you go. And then we got Nikki Shawarma. She showed up there. Credit to her for actually showing up. Did I say it? Shawarma?
Her name is Shama, not Shawarma.
Shawarma. Wow, maybe she's selling some shawarma. There you go.
That might be what she ends up doing if this goes wrong.
Sideways. There you go. Let's listen to what she has to say.
This ruling. The province was the first to announce that we would be appealing this decision. And are piecing through the arguments, and in particular the decision, how it related to private property rights. I want you to hear a little bit about what our arguments was. I think there's been a lot of discussion about extinguishment versus non, and what we argued. I just want to tell you it was nothing to do with the litigation directive. Lawyers will have different arguments, but our arguments got to the same place. We argued displacement and suspension of Aboriginal title when there's a fee simple title. So we argued that the fee simple ownership and our land title system in BC was a paramount legal structure, that all of you landowners need to have that legal certainty when you have your fee simple. Another point that, our legal counsel, we differ in our conclusions.
That's good. You can go listen to that whole thing. There's quite a bit there. Kudos to her for showing up. But the Richmond mayor, laid it out very well as well, where he said that, there was no transparency in this. And John Rustad has called on David Eby to stop with these secretive negotiations. And we're going to get Jeff Moyson to talk about the decision with Haida too, when that property was awarded. All of these things are done behind closed doors, and you're just told one day, oh, this is what happened. Eby, I think this is going to be a tough one to come back from. David Eby, they got so many messes going on. They got that mess there with healthcare. We talked about that yesterday. And then even to add to this, here's the Auditor General now saying BC government rebuked by Auditor General for improperly recording tobacco settlement cash. And I interviewed the finance minister recently as well, and we've talked about it. I didn't talk to her about this because we were only allowed 15 minutes. There's only so many questions you could get in. But, I'm also a CPA, and this cook in the book stuff is just, and this is what the Carney Liberals are trying to do right now, using different forms of accounting. But here's the Auditor General calling out the BC NDP. But then I guess what happens then? The finger pointing starts, right? So they've been rebuked by them for recording that cash settlement of $3.5 billion. They should have been recorded in last year's book rather this year and in future accounts. But Brenda Bailey says the decision to count the cash was a staff decision and not made by her or other members of her cabinet. Who's responsible for the staff? That's
amazing when you see that sort of thing, isn't it? That's like losing. It's like Napoleon loses a battle, and he's like, "But I didn't. That was a soldier's decision."
So then fire somebody. Hey, show us that you didn't know. Fire somebody. You're the one that stood up there and read it. You knew it was in there. You could have said, "Wow, this is a bad decision."
But you're the boss. Is another way to look at it. It's like this is your show.
I know you know how to read statements. You have an MBA. I know you know how to read them. I know you would say like, oh, that's weird. Hey, that's weird. This is over 7 years, this settlement. But hey, let's just record it right because we needed it for the political theater that you needed to do that day. Anyway.
But you can guarantee, she's not going to release a sort of edited, adjusted, numbers, is she? She's not going to do that. But you can guarantee that the people that might be going to lend money to the British Columbia government, they're going to do that. So when they consider the creditworthiness of BC and the state, like BC's fiscal position, they're going to look at that and they're just going to take that money off there, aren't they? So it makes the deficit look even worse. It makes the fiscal position, which is already grim, look even worse.
So you get called out lots, and I'm getting called out now. It says, does this host literally have a background and everything? Sorry that I worked in several jobs. Sorry that I'm a CPA. Sorry that I worked as a mindset controller and a dishwasher, and I worked in the oil field. I also worked on a cattle ranch. Basically, just like an average guy. I worked in many, many places and had tons of jobs, including a newspaper. Started at grade 6 delivering newspapers because we didn't have any money. We grew up dirt-ass poor. So, sorry, I guess, is that what you want to hear? Hey? Yeah. Anyway.
It's like a backhanded compliment, if anything, wasn't it? You should take it as a compliment.
There you go. Maybe. And here's the Emily for BC Greens, this young, new, we're trying to get her in for an interview as well. And, another one that goes after property rights. Basically, the Greens in that, they don't want you to, if you own a property, it's really belongs to the renters, not you. That's why a lot of people were doing Airbnb, because the Landlord-Tenant Act is very slanted towards the tenants. And I've heard horror stories. You can't get people out. They won't pay rent. There's horror stories in Toronto as well.
Yeah, Ontario has some massive horror stories.
Where you're paying like $50,000 in that to get people to move out because you want to sell the property.
Yeah, but Emily, I what's her name? Emily. Emily Lowen. There you go. It's in her little. Is this Blue Sky, by the way, or has she finally now come on Twitter? It's hilarious because she wasn't on Twitter before. You had to go to Blue Sky to see what she thought about things. But she is Emily Lowen, head of the BC Greens. She is a product of BC's economic dysfunction and political dysfunction, you could say. She's been radicalized. She's a radical, and when it comes to things like property or ownership of land or whatever you want, really, she's a radical. But you won't see a CBC investigation into her because she's a left radical rather than a right radical, which is what they're the ones that CBC and the rest of the kind of establishment likes to talk about. But there is the opposite as well, and she's now risen to some heights. Like, this is the BC Green Party's kind of quite consequential, and she's the head of it now.
They have the hammer. They have the hammer, actually. And just like Ian doesn't leave it go, I'll just say one of the jobs I had when I was a youngster, when I had my car repossessed, girlfriend dumped me and all that stuff, when I think the 80s, their interest rates went through the roof, the mills were closing down, and I was out of work for a year. And I got a job finally as a silver and ceramics technician, and that was one of the best jobs ever because it told me at that point to stop drinking and get serious. And that was, I started as a dishwasher in northern Alberta, in high-level Alberta, in 45 below, washing dishes, and then a cook and short-order cook and all those other things, oil field, all that stuff. But that's a humbling experience to be a silver and ceramics technician. And got to start somewhere. But let's kick it off into our international news here. We got to be done by 10:30 today, so we got a few minutes left.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Well, let's kick it off with Trump getting his crown. So I'm sure that let's play this little clip here, though.
The celestial gold crown symbolizes the divine connection between the authority of the heavens and sovereignty on earth, as well as the strong leadership and authority of a leader.
경주를 국기대로 차리신 우리 트럼프 대통령님께 한반도의 처음으로 평화를 가져온 신라의 정신과 함께 한미 동맹의 푸른 길을 상징하는 이 금관을 선물로 준비하였습니다.
We present this gold crown to you on this joyous occasion of your state visit to Gyeongju.
That's good.
Because it symbolizes the spirit.
There you go. So he's the first American president to receive the Grand Order. I'm going to get this wrong. Munghungawa, highest South Korean honor. That's a heck of a crown. You're right. He should wear that when he meets with Nancy Pelosi. Oh man!
And then she would get hold of it, and she could try and break that crown, but I don't think she would succeed.
I would pay to watch that clip. I would actually pay to be in attendance.
Yeah, I would enjoy that.
And then here you go. She's a bit of a star already. She's the first female prime minister in Japanese history, and that is a big deal in Japan because they're very traditional. They have very traditional customs, and she even convinced her husband to take her name. So she's a very strong lady, and she's maybe she's Japan's Margaret Thatcher. But
well, they should hope not. Thatcher did when all was said and done. Thatcher was a very mixed leader.
We played this. Well, let's play this clip again because it's good. She's celebrating her victory there with Donald Trump. So the big man and the little powerhouse. How's that?
New and incredible Prime Minister. And I have to say this, the first female Prime Minister in the history of Japan. Madam Prime Minister, please.
That's good. And then the China and ASEAN, and we talked about this earlier, signed a upgraded free trade. So they've signed a $771 billion bilateral trade. That's the ASEAN and China signed that deal. And then we're running out of time. We won't play this, but what I do want to say is there's leading and lagging indicators. And the leading indicators right now in the United States are very strong. They're very, very strong. The amount of investment pouring in the United States, the amount of deals that are being signed, those are all leading indicators. And these leading indicators come from places like, AI is the future of the world. And you look at all the plants that are being built, all the energy that's being done. You look at, I mean, they have some of the brightest minds in the world, and Elon Musk is one of those, and he's, and it's a good thing him and Trump are fighting, because Elon Musk is just focused on his companies, which is where he needs to be. He needs to be out of the political arena, and he needs to advance society, I think. And I think that's better for everybody that he's not, because otherwise he'd be stuck right to Trump's side there, because he kind of liked all the limelight there. But Elon Musk is better served doing what he's doing.
He was there a little bit too long, wasn't he?
Yeah. Elon is a very focused guy, and he goes all in on everything, right? So, but here's this clip I was talking about, and here's Gavin Newsom. Just, you know, because Gavin Newsom has been losing his mind on Trump's addition to the White House, which is all being paid for by companies like, you know, like Google and that are all chipping in the $300 million to do this addition to the White House's ballroom so they can entertain. He wants it to be like Buckingham Palace, I guess. But Gavin Newsom, on the other hand, is a $1.1 billion tax-funded capital renovation. But listen to the reporter ask the question, and listen how Newsom responds. This is typical of Democrats and liberals.
An off-topic question, but I think both of you mentioned the ballroom. I want to first acknowledge that neither one of you were leading the Capitol Annex project, but Mr. Attorney General, you voted to approve it in 2018. Mr. Governor, the Department of General Services, which you oversee, is part of it. It has been 3 years since the legislature updated the public on the cost of that project. It is happening right now. I think one of your windows could probably oversee it. You can see the construction is happening, but yet the legislature's Joint Rules Committee refuses to provide an update. We've reported that they have violated the Legislative Open Records Act. They are continuing to withhold public records. I have asked for an interview for more than a year now, and no one will provide an update. I mean, is that appropriate on one of the most expensive buildings in the United States at this point?
You're my attorney. By the way, I don't think it's appropriate. They should provide you the information, period, full stop. But for you to conflate or compare and contrast is, with all due respect, I think that I would separate the ballroom and what Donald Trump just did in desecration and the process and that he evolved and the fact that he secured $300 million under curious circumstances from the annex and what the legislature is trying to do. And I'm not trying to defend those actions, but absolutely they should provide.
The two.
No,
just
but
saying that you
just balancing.
I mean, there's construction happening.
That's good. Look at that, how he takes control of that. I mean, it seems like a very fair question, right? You're targeting Trump because of a $300 million addition to the White House that's being funded by people that want to put their name on there, you know, like on that little plaque that goes on there. And you're doing a $1.1 billion renovation to the Capitol that you won't release information on. Seems like a fair question. And then he does,
but it's not. You're not allowed. You're not allowed to do that.
How dare you? Did you not know that we pay for you guys? Like, we pay the media here. Like, what's going on here? Like, stop that. Stop that. And here's your best friend.
Very rude to do that in California.
You tell me if this sounds familiar. We'll play this little clip here.
Did even more damage to the economy than we previously thought. Now we will turn that around. We've already delivered the fastest growth in the G7 in the first half of this year. 5 interest rate cuts in a row. Trade deals with the US, EU and India. They broke the economy. We're fixing it.
I can't believe they still do that tone. You know that where he went, they broke the economy. We fixed it. They've been doing that for decades in the House of Commons. This is called Prime Minister's Questions, like question period. I can't believe they're still doing it. It's so cheap, isn't it? But yeah, did you hear that about the interest rates? That's a funny one, and that's one to note. Where if interest rates go up, or the banks do, the central bank is doing something that isn't good, then it's like, oh, they're independent. But if it's something they want, it's like 5 interest rates cuts. Bloody good news.
And they forgot to mention, raise them in unprecedented fashion 19-fold, and then take the staircase down while they crippled the population with debt. Yeah, you forgot that part here. And if you're having the best in the G7, Carney's having the best in the G7, and the America is going to kick your butt. Where do they fit? Are they kicked out of the G7? Just like, is it going to be the G6? Or maybe you'll be the fastest growing between the G2, the 2U, or maybe the 3. Macron, the question I have is, which one loses his job first? Macron, Starmer, or Carney? Who loses his job first?
I think there's good money on Keir Starmer, isn't there? There's huge amounts of pressure on that man.
The 3 of them could start their own show. They could rival us. They could have their own show of virtue signaling.
A podcast, yeah.
And being sanctimonious, and people could call in and they could pitch them on climate agenda and how to tax people's prosperity. But listen to this call here. This is a UK talk show. Listen to this.
Oh, I live in the borough right next to Hillingdon.
Yep.
And I moved into my house in 2019. My local shop, there's been 3 stabbings, 1 murder since then.
Wow.
My friend was murdered last year up on the high street. Girl I know was murdered in Southall Park. The government are failing us. I'm so scared for my children. I have a 22-year-old son, and I'm begging him to move out of the country.
Oh my goodness, I feel for you.
What are these politicians doing to us? They're putting our children in so much danger. They're putting everyone in danger, and they're not doing nothing to help us.
And that's the thing. A lot of us feel that you know, how many is too many?
They're pushing us to do something that we don't want to do. We are peaceful people. British people never vote against their government.
Yeah,
they're going to push us to it because they're not listening to us. Our friends, our family are dying. I had a cousin murdered 20 years ago.
Shocking. And that's, I don't know if you've seen it or if the people watching this have seen it, but there's a video doing the rounds of a guy in his 40s taking a dog for a walk. He's a garbage man, I believe. Well-respected man in the community. Just taking his dog for a walk, being stabbed to death.
Yeah, that's in there. That's in the bottom line there, that video playing. And then this one here, an illegal immigrant mistakenly released from prison after sexually assaulting a child, given cash to return to Ethiopia.
This guy came over, he's been all over Europe, and then he came over on a little rubber dinghy, you know, like the little things that the Coast Guard has or whatever, trying to rescue people. He came over from France, not all the way, just a little bit, and then the British pick him up, collect him, put him in a hotel, quite a nice hotel in a very sort of wealthy part of England, or relatively wealthy part of England, and they give him sort of like food and a little allowance and all the rest of it. He then sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl and a woman, was sentenced to prison, and then the incompetent morons that run the prison service let him go by accident. And then he went on a runner, like for 2 days, went on the run, and now he's finally been deported without serving a sentence. He's not going to serve a sentence in Ethiopia either. And they gave him money, gave him like $1,000 basically, to just so that he couldn't complain, he couldn't lodge an appeal.
So we're going to try and speed things up because we got a couple minutes left here. We did want to cover a couple of things. They're trying to clean up Rio de Janeiro there just before the COP30 summit there, the climate summit. Carney is probably going to be there, but they just basically had bullets flying everywhere. 2,500 cops rolled into Rio there. And I think there were 60 or 80 dead. And there's, like, you can see, like, we won't play the clip now because we just don't have time. And this is their cleanup. And then this next one here, Vladimir Putin here is saying he's inviting the international media, including Ukrainian outlets, to visit thousands of encircled Ukrainian troops. This is really cruel. And he's basically saying you can go in there and talk to them before we move in on them. Like, wow. And you say you can determine their fate. Wow.
Awful. And also those biscuits on the table don't look very nice, or whatever they are. So awful food.
And we try to end. We try to end on a good note, though. My favorite guy in the world that I think is going to lead the world to prosperity is Elon Musk. And look at that, the Las Vegas Police Department, all fired up with cyber trucks. And then we're going to listen to this little clip here. Let's do the second clip. We won't do the first one here because let's do that one there, because we're running out of time here.
Be looking at the Cybertruck wondering why Cybertruck for police. This vehicle is going to be ultimately compared to Chevy Tahoes and F-150s. And what makes the Cybertruck unique versus other vehicles are a handful of things. Number one, you have the door panels that are already ballistic protected. Number two, you have a huge amount of space and a very nimble vehicle. But perhaps most importantly, Cybertrucks don't need oil changes. They don't have regular maintenance intervals. They're very easy to maintain. In fact, you don't really even run through brake pads because of the regenerative braking on the vehicle. So the uptime on the vehicle, besides maybe buying a tire if you get a nail in it, there's almost no maintenance needed on the vehicle and everything's covered otherwise under warranty. So it ends up being very cheap to operate. And then based on fuel, EVs don't idle, and more than half of the fuel on police officers' vehicles are spent idling because the cars have to be on all the time.
There you go. If I get pulled over by one of those, I'm again handing my license over very carefully. Those things look
That's quite interesting what you said about idling, though. I'd never quite thought about that, but that's a very good point.
Fuel savings is huge. Well, there's no fuel, but it is like, you know, like one of the things that drives me crazy in California when you're driving, because you get a lot of the rentals, and they have that start-stop, you know what I mean? Like they shut down, and the lights there take forever because there's like lanes and lefts and rights and all this thing. So you can sit at a light for 3-4 minutes, and the car shuts down, and then the air conditioner, because it's so bloody hot, then the pump stops on the air conditioner, so then it's just blowing this muggy air into you, so then you don't get, it's like you're just like, it's so stuffy, and then all of a sudden it's cold again, then stuffy and cold, and you're just like, oh my God, right? So, wild. Yeah, and that's it. That's our show. I was going to talk about Palantir, huge investment in Palantir, again, one of the most important companies happening right now too, as well as NVIDIA. Like, educate yourself and watch this show, because we're going to share some of this stuff that's going on. Some of the most important companies in the world right now. NVIDIA, Palantir, Tesla, and anyway. Thank you for watching, and we'll back tomorrow 9 a.m. Like and share. And thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.